All right, everybody, it's time for Prager Pill. This time it is a uniquely dumb-looking video in which two random women are sitting down to talk about, of all things, therapy. And no, not as to whether or not therapy is a good idea or not. No, the conversation is about whether or not therapy has gone woke. I have no idea what exactly that means, but I think we're sadly about to find out.
There was actually, as you mentioned, there was something that came about as well with the false allegations of sexual misconduct in the Me Too situation, which is another example of groupthink, right? Believe all women? I mean, obviously, that's ridiculous. As a psychologist, of course we know that women are fully capable of manipulation, of dishonesty. I mean, I don't understand why that would ever be.
Okay, obviously, if you want to be as f***ing obtuse and dense as humanly possible, believe all women sounds kind of silly because clearly we shouldn't just believe all women blindly no matter what they say. However, that slogan is clearly getting at the problem right now within society that when a woman makes an accusation, she isn't believed. And there's a whole ton of skepticism passed on to her. People that are abused and violated don't usually want to talk about it. It's very unlikely that somebody is going to lie about being abused in order to get attention or something. Most likely, if somebody's talking about it, it's already taken a whole bunch of strength and bravery to get to that point. So it doesn't mean we just forget about the trial because a woman said so, he's guilty. But no, it means believe her that she's suffering and that she went through something and needs support. And let justice run its course.
And, you know, I've worked with women that have admitted to having made false allegations. I've worked with men that have been, you know, the victims of them. But I was invited to speak and to answer your question about what happened with my own community of colleagues in this area. I was invited to speak by Families Advocating for Campus Equality, which is a nonprofit helping young men that have been falsely accused of sexual misconduct. They invited me to speak in Washington, D.C., and they specifically said, please don't publicize this in any way because we're so, you know, we get harassed at all of our conventions. So I told nobody. I did write into a listserv of psychologists and ask if anybody wanted to share any scholarly references about the subject of false allegations of sexual misconduct. And
now, of course, some things probably have changed, but this just comes up at the top. From 1993, false rape allegations were only around 2 to 10%. So an incredibly low margin there.
Within 24 hours, another member of the listserv wrote in and with a flyer for this event where I was going to speak. I have no idea how he got it. And he said, this is what Dr. Carmichael is really trying to ask us for because she's going to be speaking for this organization. I suggest that none of us, you know, should help her, you know.
Yeah, there's a newer study as well right here on CNN that also shows. Studies suggest the prevalence of false reporting on sexual assault is between 2 and 10%, according to the National Sexual Violence Resource Center.
With this because it's, you know, hateful and all of these things. And I was shocked. I mean, that they couldn't even entertain the idea that there could be young men that could be falsely accused of sexual misconduct. And how could we potentially help those young men? That such a broad stance. And this person was not in any way chastised. Other psychologists actually kind of piled on. And I was shocked. And so I then went and I did.
I'd be very curious to know how exactly she went about pitching this idea, you know, because obviously if you've been falsely accused and your life is turned upside down as a result, you might need help and you shouldn't be ignored. And obviously you need to be able to talk about what happened. Is that how she pitched this idea, or was it much more like, well, we know women can be lying, manipulative little bitches, so why don't we do some kind of seminar for guys who've probably been falsely accused? Because, you know, women, lol. Like, how much really was it a good, honest pitch, and how much was it just sort of assuming that I bet a lot of women are lying? And I don't know, okay? I genuinely don't know. I'm just wondering.
Did speak, and part of the engagement included sitting with a small group, about 12 young men that had been falsely accused, and they shared with me these really heartbreaking stories about how they tried to go to talk to a therapist about the trauma of being sexually, of being accused, and how it was hard for them to trust women and talk to women, and how could they move forward in this. And they said that repeatedly the therapists would accuse them of having actually been guilty, and that the therapists were not helpful to them, that they would essentially re-accuse them, re-traumatize them. And, you know,
again, people think that like therapists are all just these magical, perfect people that never possibly mess up or do anything wrong. Most people have to try multiple different therapists until they find one that actually works for them. Similarly to medication, you might have to try multiple different medications until one actually works for you. So obviously what those guys went through, it's unfortunate, it's sad. That is inappropriate behavior for a therapist to be behaving like, for sure. But at the same time, you can go talk to a different therapist.
It made me think, like, what if a victim of sexual abuse went to a therapist and the therapist said, you know what, I think you asked for it, right? To me, it's the same thing. When you take a young man who's been falsely accused, right, he's seeking help, and then the therapist says, I think you did it. And all 12 of these men had a similar story. And I then went, maybe foolishly, back to the listserv, you know, to ask if, you know, later if any therapists would be able to take these referrals, because FACE was really, FACE Families Advocating for Campus Equality, they were really looking for therapists that could help these young men. Therapists are oftentimes very eager for referrals. A lot of them have great therapy skills, but not the best business skills, and they don't, you know, they struggle to get clients sometimes. So I put it out there thinking, oh, well, they'll want to help these clients. Crickets.
That's just awful.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean,
So like one therapist corporation is unfortunately not really behaving appropriately. And now this means therapy has gone woke? What? Couldn't it just be like a problem with some malpractice within this one therapy corporation or whatever it is that you're talking about? This doesn't mean all of therapy is just gone woke. Also, I'm going to need therapy after hearing this woman's voice. It's so grating and annoying.
It really is.
I mean, these boys, it's like they're guilty even when proven innocent. I mean, it really ties into the whole Title IX thing on campuses right now, where these boys are suffering. I mean, and we're not there for them. And I would also say that probably the women are going to suffer from this idea as well of Title IX, because it puts it into the young girl's mind that she is a victim all the time, right? If the boy is always going to victimize, then the girl is always a victim.
Wait, why are they talking about Title IX? It's a federal law that was passed in 1972 to ensure that male and female students and employees in educational settings are treated equally and fairly. It protects against discrimination based on sex, including sexual harassment. They're fucking crying about this? Oh no, boys can't be boys anymore and just try to look up girls' skirts and sexually harass a bunch of people. Title IX is a federal law that prohibits sex discrimination in institutions of education that receive federal financial assistance. So, something that is just a net positive. Students can report incidents of sexual violence to their school or to local law enforcement. Schools must respond promptly and effectively to reports of sexual violence. And this is not limited to only women having the ability to make these reports. Anybody can make these reports. So men who are victimized can benefit from this as well.
Absolutely. And of course, it hurts the ability of girls to trust boys and to see them as allies. I mean, when you say Title IX, I'm not even sure exactly, you know, which part of that you mean. Like being Title IX, it's a verb now where, you know, girls can accuse boys of sexual misconduct and the boy gets...
Again, it's not just girls accusing boys. Anybody can accuse anybody with that system.
Expelled from school without any, you know, discussion of that. And then he has to come back and basically get tried, you know, by a kangaroo court of a bunch of professors. He doesn't even get to, you know, confront his accuser. And the worst part is that, as you said, the girls are not only seeing themselves as perpetual victims, but they're also learning how to wield that as a weapon. So I've
so
also...
not only are we now just claiming that like women see themselves as victims, we're now flipping the script and saying, actually, it's the boys that are the victims. The boys are the victims because now they're just going to get falsely accused, even though Title IX has been around since 1972. Just now, it's going to pick up. Look out.
So sat with women that have acknowledged that, you know, they've either have done or have thought about making an allegation against someone, and they've threatened them as well. And I've also talked to men that have been through this, where a woman says, it's almost like the reverse. Like, instead of a man saying, sleep with me or I won't promote you, it's like the woman is saying, promote me or else I'm going to accuse you of having harassed me. So
this is so absurd. So now we're just victim blaming flat out, and then turning it into not only the victims are more at fault, but now it's the victims that are actually the perpetrators.
In one sense, the women are seeing themselves as perpetual victims, but they're also weaponizing that, which is obviously not good for them. It's not good for the men either.
This has nothing to do with therapy going woke. Lady, you didn't even understand Title IX. So this is obviously why they're freaking out about it, is the Biden administration finalized its Title IX rule. Schools have an obligation to address all forms of sex-based harassment. Schools are required to act promptly and effectively to address sexual violence and harassment, as well as train employees on their obligations. This is literally just a benefit to make it easier for people to report if they've been abused or harassed. It's actually like a good thing. And these people are just like, well, women are evil, you see. They're going to use the fact that they're victims to make men sad. Okay, Prager Poo, why do you curse me with your presence?
If you want to support the channel, please consider becoming a member today. Members get early access to videos, access to all the stream VODs, and exclusive access to emotes as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, become a member today.